Rory entered the boardroom with a confident stride, her raven black hair swaying behind her like a dark halo. The piercing emerald green of her eyes seemed to bore into the very soul of the room. Kael Jensen stood tall at 6 feet 2 inches, his chiseled features and sharp jawline commanding attention as he leaned against the windowsill, arms crossed over his chest. The air was charged with tension as they exchanged curt greetings. Rory's eyes narrowed as she took in Kael's imposing presence, her mind racing to reconcile the disparity between their projected reports. Kael, sensing her unease, raised an eyebrow, his gaze lingering on hers like a gentle caress. The room fell silent, punctuated only by the soft hum of the air conditioning, as they sized each other up. This was not going to be a pleasant meeting. Rory's gut twisted with anticipation, her palms growing sweaty as she realized this man would be her biggest challenge yet. Little did she know, Kael had already pegged her as the opponent he least wanted to face off against. "I'll get straight to the point, Ms. Blackwood," Kael said, his deep voice dripping with sarcasm. "Your projections are laughable." Rory's eyes flashed with indignation as she felt her carefully crafted presentation being dismantled before her very eyes. "You're underestimating the market's potential," Kael continued, a smirk playing on his lips. "Our target audience is shifting, and we need to adapt our strategy to stay ahead of the curve." Rory's nostrils flared as she felt her anger simmering just below the surface. "I disagree. Our data shows," but Kael cut her off with a raised hand. "Let me stop you right there, Ms. Blackwood," he said, his tone dripping with condescension. "You're relying too heavily on outdated trends and not considering the game-changing implications of new technologies." The room seemed to shrink as Rory's eyes locked onto Kael's, her mind racing to counter his attacks. This was personal now. The meeting devolved into a heated debate, with neither side willing to budge. Finally, the CEO intervened, urging them to focus on finding common ground. As they parted ways, Rory felt her anger and frustration seeping away, replaced by an unsettling sense of attraction she couldn't quite explain. Kael's piercing gaze lingered in her mind, leaving her feeling off balance and wondering if she'd just met the one person capable of toppling her carefully constructed walls. I forced a smile as our server led us to a cozy table by the window. Kael slid into the chair opposite me, his eyes never leaving mine. The silence was oppressive, punctuated only by the clinking of glasses and the soft murmur of conversation from neighboring tables. I fidgeted with my napkin, feeling like a trapped animal in a gilded cage. How did we go from fiery disdain to this awkward truce? The tension between us was palpable, like a live wire humming just below the surface. I dared not look at him, fearing my eyes would betray me and reveal the fluttering butterflies that had taken up residence in my chest. Kael's gaze, however, seemed to bore into my very soul, as if searching for secrets hidden deep within my emerald green depths. The air was thick with unspoken words, and I longed to shatter this brittle silence with a well-placed barb or witty remark. But something held me back. Maybe it was the flicker of attraction that danced in his eyes, or perhaps the memory of our scorching disagreement still lingered, reminding us both that we were far from friends. As I pushed my food around my plate, Kael's words echoed in my mind, "We're not done yet." Oh, how little did he know. The meal dragged on, each bite a chore, until finally, we finished and parted ways, the unspoken promise between us as taut as a bowstring waiting to snap. Rory wandered through the forgotten paths, her raven black hair tangling with the thorns as she sought refuge from the stifling tension within the estate's walls. The abandoned garden was a secret she discovered by chance, its beauty and neglect speaking to her own fragmented soul. As she strolled, the crunch of gravel beneath her feet was the only sound in this oasis of solitude. Her thoughts drifted back to Kael Jensen, his piercing blue eyes etched on her mind like a branding iron. Why must he be so infuriatingly charming? She shook off the distraction, focusing on the delicate petals of a nearby rose bush. Its beauty was fleeting, just as her own happiness would be if she let Kael get too close. The memories of their clashing opinions in the boardroom still simmered beneath the surface, and the forced harmony they'd shared only made things more complicated. Rory's grip on the thorny stem tightened as she confronted the truth. she was drawn to Kael's intensity like a moth to flame, even if it meant risking her own heart. The air around her seemed to vibrate with an unspoken understanding, as if the garden itself sensed her turmoil. In this moment, she felt more alive than she had in years. The vulnerability crept into her chest, making it hard to breathe, and she knew that Kael was not just a rival, but a force she couldn't ignore. Rory's fingers trembled as she opened the hidden safe in the dusty attic. The air was thick with anticipation, and her heart raced like a caged animal as she recalled the secret words Kael had whispered to her during their last heated encounter. "Meet me here," he'd said, his voice low and husky, sending shivers down her spine. What did he want? Why was it so important that she meet him in this abandoned attic? She took a deep breath, pushing aside the doubts, and stepped inside the safe. The metal door creaked shut behind her, enveloping her in an eerie silence. Rows of old trunks, forgotten photographs, and yellow documents seemed to whisper secrets of their own. Rory's eyes scanned the dusty shelves, searching for something. Her gaze landed on a small, leather-bound book with a strange symbol etched onto the cover. Recognition sparked within her. This was Kael's journal. The one he'd kept hidden from everyone, including himself. A flutter began in her chest as she opened the book to the first page. The words blurred together as tears pricked at the corners of her eyes. She had to know what secrets lay within these pages. With a sense of trepidation, Rory delved into Kael's inner world, revealing the deepest wounds and desires that threatened to consume them both. Rory's eyes stung as she gazed out at the ravaged landscape. The stormy night had passed, leaving behind a trail of destruction. Kael's words echoed in her mind, "Meet me here." He'd wanted to reveal his secrets, and she'd followed him into this chaos. What was the purpose behind their clandestine meeting? As she walked through the rubble-filled street, a faint glow caught her attention. A small, candlelit table stood amidst the wreckage, with Kael's journal lying open on its surface. The symbol etched onto the cover seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. Without hesitation, Rory approached the table, her heart pounding in her chest. What secrets lay hidden within these pages? And why had Kael brought her here, into this desolate landscape? Rory's eyes blazed with a fierce intensity as she confronted Kael in the midst of the storm. The wind howled around them like a chorus of banshees, but they stood frozen, locked in a battle of wills. Her fingers clenched into fists at her sides as she accused him of playing with fire. "You've been hiding secrets from me all along. What do you want from me? Why did you bring me here?" The air seemed to vibrate with the unspoken words between them, as if the storm itself was responding to their fury. Kael's face twisted into a snarl, his eyes flashing like lightning in the darkness. "I wanted to show you," he growled, his voice low and menacing, "that our secrets are not so different after all." The tension between them crackled with electricity as they danced on the precipice of chaos, their emotions threatening to consume them whole. Rory's tears flowed like a river, washing away the hope and optimism that had once filled her heart. She was a shipwreck, lost at sea without a lifeline. The weight of Kael's secrets crushed her, making it hard to breathe. Every thought, every memory, was tainted by their shared darkness. Her phone lay on the coffee table, its screen shattered like her dreams. The silence was oppressive, punctuated only by the sound of her own despairing sobs. She felt like she was drowning in a sea of tears and regret. Why did I let him get to me? Why did I fall for his lies? Her voice was hoarse from crying, but she couldn't stop. The pain was too raw, too real. She had never felt so alone, so lost. The darkness that lurked within Kael's eyes seemed to be seeping into her very soul. She was a stranger in a strange land, with no map to guide her back home. As the night wore on, Rory's tears finally subsided, leaving behind a hollowed-out shell of what once was. She wiped her face with the back of her hand, surveying the devastation around her. "I need to get out of here," she whispered to herself, gathering her shattered remains. Rory stood at the edge of the hidden waterfall, her raven-black hair whipping around her face as she gazed out at the churning water. The air was heavy with mist and secrets, and Kael's words echoed in her mind like a taunt, "I'll take what I want." She felt the sting of his rejection still, even after their reckless abandon on the rooftop. Her heart raced with every step she took closer to the precipice, as if trying to escape the darkness that had taken up residence inside her. "You can't stay here," Kael's voice whispered in her mind. And yet, she felt an overwhelming urge to confess everything, the burning secrets, the forbidden attraction, and the fear of losing herself to his mercy. As she raised her eyes to meet his, the water below seemed to churn with a life of its own, as if reflecting the turmoil within. "Kael," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the roar of the falls. His eyes locked onto hers, and for an instant, she saw something else, a glimmer of vulnerability, a hint of understanding, before he took another step closer. The air thickened with tension as they stood poised on the edge of revelation, their hearts beating in tandem like the waterfall's rhythmic pulse. "What is it, Rory?" Kael asked, his voice low and husky, as if daring her to spill her secrets. And she did everything, pouring out her fears, desires, and darkest truths like a libation to the gods. The water continued its relentless drumbeat, a reminder that nothing remained hidden forever.